Are you a nature lover? Well, you may change your mind after listening to these stories. Joining us today is the Sinful Savant. Please check out this amazing narrator by clicking on his icon. So, without further hesitation, let's begin. Number 1. So, I'm a biologist, and I frequently find myself in remote locations. This occurred when I was 26, and somewhere between green and seasoned. I was surveying wetlands in a remote area of the Appalachians, in an area dominated by thick forests. I always go on the country assessor's website, so I can print off a map with landowner information, so I wouldn't trespass. That can get me shot. At this particular site, there was a driveway going through the U.S. Forest Service's land that led me to my destination a little quicker. This driveway was absolutely public property, and at no point did I trespass. I pulled onto this road, clearly created by the U.S. Forest Service, and pulled off to the side about 30 yards from somebody's private entry gate. My vehicle was clearly marked State Government Vehicle. The inner forest is mostly old growth pine, but on the outer edges of the forest is thick with undergrowth, forming some kind of wall before you get to the underpines in a nice open understory. I walk about 200 yards in when nature calls, and I make like a bear into the woods and do my business. I'm a biologist, so no biggie. Midway through, I hear yelling back in the direction of my truck. I think, great. Now I have to deal with this. I'm wrapping up my business, getting ready to walk back to my truck, and I hear gunshots. I stopped walking and I thought, yeah, I'm not walking back to that. I was at a loss of what exactly to do, and I stood there for about a minute considering my options when I heard someone break through the undergrowth of the edge of the forest. Shit, someone's coming into the woods. I get a really bad vibe. This is absolutely the type of area where people just straight up disappear. It's very, very remote, and the communities are very closed. This country has more than doubled the amount of game wardens of other countries, for a very good reason. I take off in a crouching jog, using my sense of direction to make it back onto the main road, which is about 600 yards away. Suddenly, more gunshots. Except this time, they have a cracking sound to them, which means they're coming in my direction. There's no way they see me out here, but maybe they're hearing me. Maybe they're firing above my head. My adrenaline kicks in 100% now, and I'm moving with a mix of terror and urgency to find the main road. I eventually get to the main road, and I find a bridge and hide underneath it. I call a colleague of mine to give them details of where I'm located so that they can at least find my body. And then I call 911. This was the first time in my life that I've ever called 911. The 911 operator doesn't believe me, but eventually I get in touch with the deputy. He doesn't believe me either. They're probably just shooting tin cans. Bullshit. It's Sunday night at 7 p.m. and he's too lazy to get off his ass. I move further away into a public hunting area, and a game warden stops in. God bless him. He took me seriously. And a few locals came by and commented about how the landowner is an asshole. He was from Louisiana, and not a local. I got along well with all the locals I had encountered, so that makes a bit of sense. After an hour or so, the deputy gives me a ride back to my state vehicle. The son of a bitch was parked on an ATV with a rifle laid across his lap, waiting for me in the dark. The deputy and I get out of the car, and I just walk straight up to my truck and leave. It's almost 9 p.m. and I have a 4-hour drive to get home, and I just had enough. At the time, I didn't want to talk to the guy at all, but now I wish I had. Who knows what kind of conversation the deputy had with him. After this, I quietly started carrying a firearm in the field with me at all times. I'm glad I trusted my gut feeling and insisted on the police escort back to my vehicle. That was not an encounter or conversation I wanted to have with someone with an overly active trigger finger. I had all the guy's contact information. I got it from the country assessor's website, and I thought about mailing him a map clearly stating where his property begins and ends, but I just let it go. Maybe he thought I was the creep. So, displaced Louisianan, let's not meet again. Number 2.
My story involves myself, 3 of my really good friends throughout my whole childhood. We'll have them go by Kevin, Ryan, and Tommy, whom I am good friends with to this day. I could not write this story to you without their help, consent, and experience as well. The story you're about to read is true, and not made up in any way. Regardless, whether we had been seeing things or not, the reality is we had experienced something very horrifying the one night at my friend Kevin's cabin. We thought long and hard about actually sharing it or not, afraid of being ridiculed, but we're ready to share with the community, and again, you had to be there to experience it. One of my friends had actually suffered a nervous breakdown after the incident, and needed counseling itself. Regardless, I would like you to know, also I have always been a skeptic on the paranormal, and find it very hard to believe in many aspects. But I love to watch, listen, and read on it, simply because I always love to have an open mind in life. An open mind, in my opinion, is a growing one. Whether it's paranormal or not, someone was clearly there that night. Now finally on with the story. During the midsummer, usually around the middle of July, me and a couple of my good friends, who I had mentioned, all the way through my childhood, always made time to go up to one of my friend's family's cabin, way up north in the forest of Minnesota. The cabin was located on Vermilion Lake. Throughout all of our young years, we would always go, for sure accompanied by my friend's dad, Kevin's dad, who owned the cabin, and sometimes a few of our dads as well. Once we were juniors in high school, we felt mature and old enough to go to the cabin on our own, finally without Kevin's dad, or any other adult supervision that may have accompanied us. I would like to mention a little information in regard to my friend's cabin, to help you picture the scenario. My friend's cabin is very remote, and very little based upon a large-sized island. Other cabins were on the island, but the next one closest to us was a solid quarter or half a mile away at least, which is my best guess, which you could get to by taking a man-made path around the island. And I want to mention that to get to my friend's cabin, you had to park on a gravel road on the opposite side of the island, as his cabin was on an island. Then you would take a boat across the lake, about a half mile, to reach the cabin, and this lake was huge. My mind always had a tendency to run around when sleeping there at night. Throughout all my years, it was a one level with only 2 bedrooms next to one another. A kitchen, living room connected, and a bathroom in the back of the cabin. And where you slept in the cabin, there was always at least one window in each room, with no curtain to it at all. So it was very easy to see outside the woods and the lake. And this is where my mind would run, as I always thought someone was peering in. Of course, nobody ever was. I had been to this cabin a dozen times throughout my lifespan, and nothing had ever happened. And the older I got, the easier it was to sleep. Now for the event. We usually would stay a week's worth, or 4 to 5 nights. On the 3rd night during the trip, when we were there on our own, finally, we had set up a campfire and had been drinking beer all night. I don't condone underage drinking, by the way. We just happened to sneak some, being the rebels we are. We went out to his dock to gaze up at the magnificence of the stars, and enjoy our buzz, when all of a sudden we heard something out on the water that sounded like a fish jumping out to catch a bug. We quickly looked at the lake with curiosity, wondering where the splash came. Having our pools ready 24/7, thankfully the moon was out that night, which helped light up the lake. Otherwise it would be dark as black, with there being no city lights for miles upon miles, and we would not have been able to see anything on the lake. My one friend Ryan began to point out, saying, what the hell is that? After looking closely and finally spotting what he was pointing at, all I can describe is, it was simply looked like a head out in the middle of the lake, just floating about, staring at us directly. It was about 3/4 worth of a football field length, out in the lake from the dock. There was no question that I could see its features. It had long black hair, and very palish skin like a face, but couldn't make out the eyes, mouth, nose, or chin, as if it was just a blob of pale skin with long black hair over it. I'll never forget the feeling that came over me. The hairs on my legs, neck, arm all stood up, and I was paralyzed on the inside, ready to leave that moment. But we told ourselves it was just a loon, as these birds are very popular night drifters on the lake and they do their hunting late, and also have black with white colors on their coats. And they do hunt by diving deep into the water, holding their breath up to minutes sometimes. So it was possible that a loon all of a sudden popped up in the water after hunting a bit, or at least we tried to talk ourselves into that scenario. All of us having the creeps and noticing it wasn't moving one bit, just treading water in the same place. We went back to our campfire, and when it was lit even brighter, we headed inside to drink more. I would like to mention that there was a staircase outside my friend's cabin, about 8 stairs in length down to the bottom where the fire pit was, and dock. We soon forgot about the head with the help of the beer, until I had to use the bathroom really bad, and the one inside was preoccupied. I just went outside to do my business since we were in the great outdoors. When I had been taking a pee and glancing out at the beautiful moonlit lake, I noticed that the black circle object was still there, but about 30 yards closer now, still looking as if it was staring right at me. I could easily see the nose on this thing's face. Again, it was very pale, like it hadn't seen the sun for years. And very, very uneasy feeling came over me, and I immediately went inside, told my other friends to come out and look quick, keeping my eyes glued to it at the door to the cabin. We came outside to see, it still was there looking at us, as if this head was corked up at us with its chin in the air. Nobody dared go down to the dock anymore, and we immediately went back inside, ruling out that it probably wasn't a loon, because a loon wouldn't have tread the water in the same spot. Eventually the current would have drifted it somewhere else in a rocking manner. For a loon to stay in the same spot for almost an hour or two made no sense to any of us. This head-like object was stiff as a board and not moving a single muscle, just staring up at us from the deck instead. There was no ripple effect at all in the lake from the object. We said it was just a log and went back in. I could tell everyone felt uneasy too. A few hours would pass. It was super late into the night at this point, and we knew we needed some sleep. Being my curious self, I looked back outside once more, and the black object had completely vanished. I could help but feel a sense of relief thinking the log must have floated or just hit shore somewhere. As we slept with the windows open that night, there was no AC in this cabin, and we had to open them or we would fry in the cabin, with it being the middle of summer. Me and my other buddy Tommy slept in the living room, while my 2 other friends slept in 2 separate bedrooms with their doors open. Not being able to sleep but keeping my eyes peeled shut, I began to hear someone walking around at the bottom of the stairs to the cabin. Around the campfire and at the bottom of the stairs. I thought I was about to shit bricks. No question what or whoever I had heard down there was on the dock now, pacing back and forth as it made the sound of a boot clicking on wood. It was as if they weren't sure what to do with themselves. It lasted for about 3 minutes. Wanting to whisper to my buddy, but frozen in fear, I just kept my eyes shut and ears on full alert. The footsteps sounded like they took 2 steps up the deck stairs all of a sudden, but then turned back around and sounded like they were sprinting out down the main man-made path. After it sounded like the steps were long gone, and a couple minutes had passed, I woke up Tommy asking if he had heard the steps. Both of us sitting up, I was startled to see my friend Ryan walking out of his room and saying we need to leave a minute after these steps vanished. He must have heard us talking, so he felt he could come out as well. But either way, he was waking up regardless. Something was very disturbing about his expression, and I asked him, why? He woke up my other friend Kevin in the other room and said, let's go. Get to the boat. It's time to go. Asking him, what? Ryan, what the hell is wrong with you? He explained to us quickly while grabbing his stuff. And I will never forget what he explained, as won't my friends either. He said, when he was turning sides on his bed to get more comfortable, he saw someone peeking in at the top right corner of his window, and it quickly shifted out of his view. He said all he saw was one eye, ghostly white skin, and black hair long down the window. Again, another thing I would like to add. When we look back at what we experienced, it chills us to the bone realizing that since his face was in the top right corner of the window in my friend's room that he was sleeping in, this thing either was nearly 8 feet tall, standing on something like bricks trying to peek in, or was floating. Ryan then continued to say, let's fucking go, very seriously. Absolutely disturbed the fuck out of my mind and feeling like I was going to be sick, and then telling them what my friend and I heard in the living room. We all agreed and packed our stuff and booked it, not cleaning the cabin or anything. We always had to clean the cabin before leaving. We locked up, and as we headed down the stairs, we saw barefoot prints in the dirt heading off onto the path and all around the cabin. We picked up our step getting to the boat, not knowing what was watching us or around us. We threw our stuff on the boat, untied it, and sped off. I didn't even think about the head in the water anymore, or to look in the water, thank God. My eyes were just glued to the island, trying to spot anything moving, but I saw nothing. When we had finally gotten our stuff packed in the car and boat tied up, we hopped in the car and took off. We had been driving out about 10 miles, and out of the blue, Ryan, who said he saw the person outside his windows, all of a sudden broke down in the car sobbing, saying, "What was it, guys? Oh fuck, what did I see?" We called to tell our parents what had happened on the way back, and that Ryan was freaking out. They told us just get home safely and quickly. It was late, around 4 or 5 in the morning, but no one slept. It was a very quiet ride home. My friend's dad, who owns a cabin, went up that following weekend, said he experienced nothing while there, but did mention bare footprints were still lingering, about which he thought odd, because someone was walking around his property, which bugged him badly. Whatever my one friend saw in the window really hit him hard. After his breakdown, he had trouble sleeping multiple nights, and ended up having to seek some help for a couple weeks and hop on some sleeping medication. As time went on, he ended up being fine, but too comfortable sleeping next to a window without a curtain. I, to this day, cannot explain what happened and why it seemed to happen to us, and cannot explain what I saw in the lake and what Ryan specifically saw. Nothing has ever happened at that cabin since that night. So we're told from my friend's dad who owns it, which I believe him. I personally have never decided to go back to the cabin, which really makes me sad because I had great memories as a child there. Tommy and Kevin both have gone back and been fine, but Ryan refuses to go back, and I'm with him. A lot of people have cabins on this island, so it could have been a prank in the making that had been busted when Ryan saw the person at the window, or the person possibly wanted to do something worse. I will never be able to explain what was floating in the lake, but the fact that this incident, along with bare feet and someone looking in at Ryan at night, all happened in the same night, seems like more than a coincidence.
Number 3. I'm a male, and I was around 17 at the time. This story takes place on a winter's night in a small town in southern England. I was over at a friend's house for a few drinks, as we were too young to hit the pubs, and the weather was too cold to drink in the woods, as usual. My friend's house was around 2 miles from where I lived, and halfway home there was a shortcut through the woods, which would shave off a few precious minutes on my walk home. We were having a good time and enjoying a few cans of cider, and around 11 p.m. I decided to head home as I had work the next morning. I headed out of my friend's house and through the alleyway to the main road. It was here that I noticed someone on the other side of the road, about a half mile back. I thought nothing of it. It's a quiet town, and I've made this walk plenty of times before, without issue. As I started walking, I felt an odd sensation, and the hairs on my neck started to stand on end. I turned around to see the person had crossed the road and was now walking on the same side of the road as me. Still a way behind, but I could see that it was a large man with a hooded top. Being a relatively switched-on person, I decided to cross the road to see if he copied me. No sooner had I done it that, sure enough, the man followed. At this point, I started to nope out and walk faster. I kept checking behind me, and he too was walking faster, and there was a glint of something in his hand. Now, it could have well been anything, but my brain was telling me this man had a knife. I continued walking until I was around 100 meters away from the shortcut. Now, I had a decision to make. Do I take the shortcut through the woods, or do I continue another half mile towards the main road where there are likely cars? I spent a lot of time in those woods, and felt that I would at least have a chance to lose the guy in there. Looking back, the guy was around 200 meters behind me now, and gaining fast. My fight or flight kicked in, and I started sprinting towards the gate in the shortcut. Now, the shortcut was a small unlit dirt road, wide enough for a car to fit down, with back gardens on one side, long grass on the other, and tree roots littering the path. As I rounded the gate and onto the path, I checked it back, and the man was fully sprinting behind me now. I got about 10 meters down the path and tripped on one of the roots, falling flat on my face. Knowing that I had seconds to make a decision on what to do before he got to the gate, I didn't think I could get up and move quick enough. Plus, my knee was shut after falling down. I did the first thing that came to my mind, and I rolled off the path and into the tall grass and lay there, trying to be silent and still as possible. A moment later, I heard the gate rattle and someone walk up behind me. Unable to see, as I was laying on my chest facing forward, I prayed that he wouldn't see me. The man lingered for a moment, around 4 feet away from where I was laying, catching his breath. He was breathing really heavily, and I could tell that he was straining his eyes to try to see down the path in the dark. After what felt like an eternity, he started walking off down the path, and I watched him go as far as I could see in the dark. My heart was throbbing, and the adrenaline was pumping throughout my body. I had sobered up very quickly, and now acutely aware of every single noise in the woods. I waited around 10 minutes after I last saw him, before slowly getting to my feet. I very slowly made my way towards the road, listening carefully for any noises that were out of place in the woods. and keeping a low profile while moving back towards the gate. As I reached the gate, I heard a loud bang behind me. I spun around quickly, and I saw a black cat had just jumped onto one of the fences, but no sign of the man. I made my way onto the road and managed to get home without any further incident. Needless to say, I was incredibly wary whenever we returned to the woods for a drink. So, potential knife-wielding murderer, let's not meet again. Yeah, I think I'll be staying inside for a little while. If you guys enjoyed, please feel free to comment, like, and subscribe. And don't forget to check out the Sinful Savant. So, you guys stay safe out there. Until next time.